Hello, co-journeyers, and welcome back to The Truth So Help Me Good. I am your host, Barbara Landry, and together we continue to explore some of the bigger questions about this journey we call life, with inspiration from my upcoming memoir, The Truth So Help Me Good. Welcome to episode 16. This past week, I celebrated Passover with my family. For me, Passover not only represents a ritual that has been practiced by Jews for thousands of years, but it is also part of my own family tradition and that of my ancestors. It was my grandmother's chicken soup with matzo balls and Aunt Charlotte's homemade gefilte fish. It became my parents welcoming us to their table, and my mother starting the Seder with a quote from Anne Frank. And most recently, it was coming to the table with angst about the current war between Israel and Hamas and the atrocities that have been committed on all fronts. But most importantly for me, was trying to stay focused on the paramount principle of the Exodus story and the purpose of the retelling every year. And that is that none of us is free unless all of us are free. I have been grappling with this concept for months now, watching the events in the Middle East and trying to understand how the oppressive actions of governments are consistent with the message of our Jewish heritage. Sitting at the table at my parents' home on Passover this past week, what felt most challenging was how we would be able to carry out this tradition of our ancestors and not bump up against what seemed like the obvious contradiction of the core message by the actions that are being carried out by some of our people. It was obvious that we wanted to talk about it, but it was also obvious that we were afraid of where it would take us and decided instead to carry out the ritual out of respect for our tradition and our ancestors. We consciously chose not to speak about it, mostly because we were not sure we knew how. Here in the United States, we have a rich history of free speech and protest, speaking out against slavery, women's rights, unsafe work conditions, and when I was growing up, the Vietnam War. In my memoir, I write about being a teenager amidst the climate of protest in a chapter entitled Kaleidoscope, and I quote, "The air was filled with political unrest and rebellion in the form of anti-war protests, civil rights activism, and the women's liberation movement. The country was reeling from scandals such as Watergate. My 16-year-old inner warrior princess resonated with the counterculture and was filled with inspiration when Abby Hoffman's Steal This Book landed in my hands. I was on fire and ready to lead the movement, any movement, which would result in standing up to the wrongs that surrounded and subsumed me." End quote. I even went so far as to make a flyer for a sit-in with my friend when we discovered that the mimeograph machine had been left unattended in one of the school offices. We called ourselves People of Time, or POT for short, and announced that the time of the revolution is now, and to attend the sit-in in the school cafeteria at noon. We posted them all over the school that morning, but when the vice principal showed up intent to stop the event, we abandoned our project. But the experience was powerful insomuch as we were taught that standing up for what we believed was not only the right thing to do, it was our responsibility to do so. Here in the United States, we are fortunate to be able to speak freely without fear of having our liberty taken away. That is not true in other places in the world. It is something that we must protect, as this could change in the future. An important question becomes, how do we show up? What is our state of mind? What is our objective? And what is the impact of our behavior? For example, Mother Teresa once said, "I will not attend an anti-war rally, but if you hold a peace rally, invite me." What is the difference, you might ask? Aren't they the same? The answer is no, they are not. There is a concept that our energy flows where our attention goes. When we are focused on that which we are against, anti-war, anti-drugs, anti-cancer, etc., we focus our attention and our energy on the very thing we do not want: war, drugs, disease. We energetically plug in to the things we want the least. When we focus our attention and energy on that which we want, peace, health, human rights, we are providing strength and promoting the things that we want to help create. A conversation about peace is very different than a conversation about war. I myself would love to talk more about peace. I would like to learn to have difficult conversations with people who have different points of view and maintain respect while listening attentively to others. I become more and more aware that this is a skill and must be cultivated to be put into practice. The conflict in the Middle East is a highly emotionally charged issue and is made more difficult by the complexity of its history and the wrongs that have been perpetrated against so many. I want to hold fast to the core values that I was taught as an American Jew, that we are charged with the task of tikkun olam, to help repair the earth and put the broken pieces together. That acts of loving kindness are one of the fundamental principles of being a Jew. These principles are clearly not being applied in the Middle East, and the justification for it serves as a complete contradiction to who I thought we are as Jews. I believe there are many Jews in the Middle East who feel the same way and march in protest against their government, whose actions are at odds with what the people want. As Americans, we can relate to this in our own history. This week is the anniversary of Kent State. In 1970, members of the Ohio National Guard opened fire into a crowd of protesting college students, resulting in 4 dead and 9 injured. Days earlier, President Nixon had announced that the United States had invaded Cambodia, after having promised the American people that he would end our involvement in Vietnam. These actions were not only contrary to what he said he would do, but they were also not aligned with the wishes and desires of many Americans. Our government and its decisions were at odds with its people, and its attempt to manage the protesting students ended in disaster. And now, over 50 years later, students across the country are protesting on college campuses once again, speaking out against social injustice, violations of basic human rights, and genocide, asking universities to separate themselves from any companies that are advancing military efforts in Gaza. Our challenge is not to find something to fight against, but to be clear and purposeful about what we are fighting for. Albert Einstein is quoted as saying, "We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." It is now our challenge to find new perspectives that will allow us to create the conditions that will support our core values of human rights, peace, and freedom for all people. And for me, as a Jew, to hold to the message of the Passover story that none of us is free until all of us are free. I would like to end this episode with a quote from Anne Frank, as contained in our family Passover Haggadah and as read every year by my mother to begin our Seder. And I quote, "It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals, because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out. Yet I keep them, because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. I simply can't build up my hopes on a foundation consisting of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder, which will destroy us too. I can feel the suffering of millions. And yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all become right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out." End quote. Thank you, co-journeyers, for listening. I look forward to being with you again soon. Take care and be well.